Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. Today's What's for Dinner video is a little bit different than my usual What's for Dinner videos. I didn't do a video last week because last week, of course, was Christmas. So this is really kind of combining 2 weeks. And then we ate out a couple times and we had some holiday meals. So like I said, a little different, but still I hope you enjoy it and that you get some weeknight meal ideas. Let's get into this video. Dinner this first night was off the meal plan, but I just wanted like a good cheesy baked pasta that just sounded really good to me. So I did like the viral baked Alfredo spaghetti, which I've shared a couple times before on my channel. I'll link one of those videos down below. It's really easy. You just make homemade Alfredo sauce, or you could use jarred sauce, of course. You toss that with some cooked spaghetti, put it in a casserole dish, top that with, whatever spaghetti sauce you like using, and then add some shredded cheese. Bake that for maybe 20 to 30 minutes until it's golden brown and bubbly. And then I just cooked up some garlic cheese toast that I had in my freezer that needed to be used up, and that's what I had for dinner that night. I didn't make a salad or anything, wasn't super hungry, and Gary ate later than I did, but he had the same thing, some of the pasta and garlic bread, and that was our dinner this night. So for dinner the next night, I combined 2 nights worth of meals because I had went off the meal plan the previous night making this spaghetti. So I had planned on the menu to do a like Korean flank steak with sesame noodles, which Gary absolutely loves that. That's like his favorite thing that I make. He requested it. I've shared that several times before on my channel, but I also wanted to try a new recipe I saw on Instagram. I think the lady's Instagram name is like Gaming Foodie or something like that. I'll have it linked down below. But she made this like shrimp and udon noodle stir fry that looked really, really good. So instead of doing the sesame noodles, I just did the shrimp and udon stir fry. So let me show you how I made this. And like I said, I have shared this flank steak before. I'll link that video down below so you can check that out for the exact measurements. We've made this recipe for years. It's really easy and it's flavorful. I've got some minced ginger, garlic, sesame oil, soy sauce, rice vinegar, brown sugar, and I believe the recipe calls for red pepper flakes, which I normally use, and you can use that, but I have some gochujang on hand, so I'm just going to use that instead. And then I've got this flank steak. As you can see, I got it marked down at Food Lion. It was in my freezer. I just let it thaw. I'm going to mix up the marinade, add that in a flank steak to a Ziploc bag, and I marinated this overnight. Now, in the past, I've grilled this, cooked this on top of the stove. Tonight, I decided to try it in the air fryer. Now, I just went on Google and looked at several different air fryer flank steak recipes. Pretty much everything that I saw said to preheat your air fryer, which normally I don't preheat the air fryer, but I decided to go with it. So I turned the air fryer on 400 degrees, preheated it for 5 minutes, added the steak, cooked it for about 6 minutes, flipped it over, cooked it another 6 to 8 minutes or so. Just cook it until the steak is done to your liking. How long it takes really depends on your air fryer and how you like your steak. But once it is cooked to your liking, make sure you let it rest for about 10 minutes. And then with this being flank steak, you want to make sure you cut it against the grain. So that just means take a look at your steak, see where the striations are, how they're running, and just cut it the opposite way. Here are the noodles that I use, and I didn't notice this when I bought them, but I was really excited to see when I went to, start dinner that these noodles, you can cook them in the microwave. So you don't have to worry about like getting a pot out, filling it with water, bringing it to a boil, cooking your noodles. One less dish to, worry about. So I was pretty excited about that. Just popped them in the microwave. Here are the ingredients for the sauce, and remember the Instagram reel or video that I got this from will be down below. You can check that out for the measurements. I've got some brown sugar, dark soy sauce, rice vinegar, sesame oil, and some oyster sauce. In my large skillet here, and you can also use a wok for this. I have a wok. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't use the wok. It doesn't really matter either way. I've got some oil in here on medium-high heat. Once that oil is hot, we're going to add in our shrimp. Now, I'd prefer to use raw shrimp, but I had cooked on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. And then to the shrimp, we're going to add some of the dark soy sauce. Now, I thought it had like the like nozzle or whatever you call it on this to where it would just kind of drizzle it, and it just poured. So you can see I took some paper towels and got rid of a lot of that soy sauce because I did not mean to put it in there. But I'm just going to kind of sear that shrimp and then remove it to a plate, set it to the side. And because of the soy sauce fiasco, I wiped the skillet out with some paper towels. Added a little more oil back to the skillet. I'm going to add in some minced garlic, give that a little stir, and then we are going to add in our mushrooms. Now, I'm using sliced mushrooms, and really for the vegetables here, you can use whatever you like or whatever you've got on hand. I've got some sliced onions, and then I decided to add some bok choy, so I just washed it really well and thinly sliced it. After I've added that, I'm going to add in some shredded carrots, and then I'm going to season that with a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm going to give that a really good mix, and then you're going to cook this for about 3 to 5 minutes. You do want to go in and stir it every so often. Just cook this until the vegetables are tender. Once they're tender, we're going to add in our cooked noodles, and like I said, these you just cook in the microwave, but just follow your package instructions and cook them according to that. So once I've added the noodles, we're going to add in the sauce. So the ingredients that I showed you earlier, the soy sauce, the oyster sauce, all that we mix together. I'm just going to add that, give it a really good toss, and then add in my cooked shrimp. Once I've added in the shrimp, I'm going to give that one more final really good toss, and then I just cooked this for a couple minutes until everything was warmed through, and this is what it looked like when it was done, and this was really good. We enjoyed this. It had great flavor. To go along with this, I had some leftover egg roll wrappers, so I just made some homemade egg rolls. I've shared this before on my channel. I just take some coleslaw mix, cook it up with some soy sauce, garlic, ginger, a little salt and pepper, fill my egg roll wrappers, and I deep fried them. I made some homemade sweet and sour sauce. Again, I've shown this before. I know everybody makes their sweet and sour sauce differently. I just do like basically equal parts ketchup, sugar, a little bit of soy sauce, and then a little bit of water, some lemon juice. You can do rice wine vinegar, and I just simmer that until it's thick. And real quick, a disclaimer, because in the past I've gotten a couple comments like this. So I know in today's video, I will say several times, I've shown this before, like the egg rolls and the sweet and sour sauce. The reason I'm not going through every single thing step by step is because, like I said, I'm pretty much combining 2 weeks worth of videos, and no one would watch this video if it's an hour long. But I will make sure to have all of the videos and recipes, everything down in the description box below for you. So here are the plates. We've got some of the noodle stir fry. I added some chopped green onions as a garnish. We've got the steak, the egg rolls, the sweet and sour sauce. This was delicious. Everything was good. Gary did end up adding some sriracha to his noodle stir fry, but this was our dinner. For dinner the next night, I made Swiss chicken. Now, I believe I've shared this before on my channel, but it's been a while, but it's super quick and easy. I've got my oven preheating to 350 degrees. I've got some chicken breasts that I sliced in half so that they are thin. Now, a lot of people, when they make this recipe, do not season the chicken, and I can totally see that because this recipe can very easily read very, very salty, but I prefer to season my chicken just a little bit. It doesn't need a lot because, like I said, with everything else, this can be a little salty, so I'm just using some of the Kinder's blend. Season both sides. Once I've got that done, I'm going to combine some milk and then a can of cream of chicken soup. I think the cream of chicken with herbs, I think that would be really good in this as well. I'm going to combine the soup and the milk, set that to the side. And now this is called Swiss chicken because you normally use Swiss cheese. Usually I use the sliced Swiss cheese, but I had this like Gruyere Swiss mixture on hand. I got this at Kroger. I really need to use this up, so I'm just going to use what I've got on hand. Once I've got the shredded cheese added, I'm going to take that soup and milk mixture, pour that over, and then spread that out with a spoon. Next, I'm going to sprinkle my stuffing mix over top of that. Now, a couple notes about the stuffing mix. One, I try to use low sodium or try to use low sodium of the soup because, like I said earlier, this can be a little salty. And then secondly, so when I make this recipe, again, it'll be linked down below for you, I do half the amount of chicken. So the recipe calls for 6 chicken breasts. I do 3, and then I do 1 can of the soup, the same amount of milk the recipe calls for, and then I normally use half the box of stuffing. Accidentally went ahead and added the whole box today, but I just wanted to point that out because I know I've got many viewers who cook for smaller families like I do. So, you know, if you're having the recipe, I would suggest going ahead and using the full amount of soup and the full amount of milk, and then half the box, but it's just a preference thing. So I'm going to drizzle Drizzle the top of the stuffing mix with some melted butter, cover this with foil, pop this into the preheated oven. Now, the recipe says to bake this for about 50 minutes. I feel like that's way too much time. The chicken gets dried out. I normally cook mine for about 30-35 minutes or so. You just want to cook it until the chicken is at least 165 degrees internal temperature. For my side dish, I just did some baked asparagus. I've got some asparagus, olive oil, and then use whatever seasonings you like. I'm going to do the Kinder's Blend. I tossed the oil, seasonings, and asparagus onto a cookie sheet, and then I just popped it into the oven and cooked it alongside the chicken. I only cooked the asparagus for maybe 15 minutes or so until it was tender. And I wasn't planning on doing another side, but I had this package of refrigerated Bob Evans mashed potatoes in my fridge and I wanted to use them up. So I just cooked them according to the package instructions. Once they were done, I added in just a little tiny pat of butter and a splash of milk. All right, here are the plates. So we've got some of the Swiss chicken, the asparagus, the mashed potatoes. And this was a yummy, comforting dinner. So the next night, we kind of wanted to celebrate a little bit. It was a couple days before Christmas. We'd had some work stuff that we got news on, and then we wanted to do a date night. So we went to just like a mom and pop Italian type restaurant. To get started, they brought out some homemade bread with an herb butter. It was delicious. And then we got the fried calamari, and they serve it with marinara sauce and a lemon aioli. We always get extra lemon aioli because it's delicious. For our entrees, I got their penne rustica, which is penne pasta, sun-dried tomatoes, asparagus, chicken, shrimp, and like a creamy garlic sauce. And then Gary wanted a pizza, but he couldn't settle on which one he wanted, so he told the waitress to surprise him, and she brought this out. It had ricotta, it had grilled chicken, pesto, all kinds of yummy stuff. And she brought us out a balsamic drizzle on the side, balsamic glaze rather, and we drizzled it over the pizza. Oh my gosh, it was delicious. But our eyes were definitely bigger than our stomachs. We only ate not even half the calamari. I had half of my pasta left, and I think Gary ate like a piece and a half of the pizza, and we took everything else home, and we had lunch like I think for the next 2 days. So that was pretty nice that we didn't have to worry about lunch, but this was such a good dinner. Dinner the next night was also off a meal plan, but it just sounded so good to me. I've shared this so many times before on my channel, and I'm sure you've seen it on YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, all the social medias. I call it creamy Italian chicken and rice. We like to serve this over rice. I know a lot of people serve it with pasta. Some people do it over mashed potatoes. However you want to serve it, it is delicious. It is absolutely a family favorite. It's super easy to put together, budget friendly. I'll have the recipe linked down below in case you'd like to see how I make it. So when Gary and I first got married, we kind of started a tradition where around Christmas time, usually it's Christmas Eve, sometimes it's Christmas Eve, just depending on, what we've got going on with our family and stuff. But we do a steak and lobster tail dinner. So this year, though, I went to go get lobster tails, and I tried 3 different stores, and they were totally sold out. And I was like, okay, so I guess lobster tails is a no this year. But I already had all this stuff to do shrimp cocktails, so we're going to do a steak and shrimp cocktail this year. So usually with steaks, I just season it really simply with salt and pepper. I decided to do a marinade. So here is how I'm going to make the marinade, and again, the recipe will be linked down below. Here are the ingredients. So for the balsamic vinegar, I have this whiskey barrel aged balsamic on hand. I need to use it up, so that's what I'm going to use. You can just use regular balsamic. Olive oil, minced garlic, some white pepper, black pepper, soy sauce, brown sugar, and then for the salt, I have this rosemary sea salt on hand, so I'm going to use that. I just combined the marinade mixture with some steaks. You can use your favorite cut of steak, of course. We like strip steaks, so I added that to a Ziploc bag and then marinated this overnight. Here are the finished steaks. I just cooked them on top of the stove until they were done to our liking, and I let them rest for about 10 minutes before I sliced them up. Here is the shrimp cocktail. So I just had some pre-cooked shrimp from the grocery store, made my own cocktail sauce. I sauteed up some onions and mushrooms. And then from where we had the Swiss chicken, we had quite a bit of the mashed potatoes left over. So I just combined them with some shredded cheese, cooked bacon, green onions, a little bit of sour cream, a little bit of dry ranch dressing mix, placed them in a little foil pan, sprinkled a little more cheese, bacon on top, popped them into an oven at like 350 degrees for just about 20 minutes or so. All right, and here is a picture of my plate. So I just sliced up the strip steaks, have it with some of the sauteed onions and mushrooms, some of the shrimp, the cocktail sauce, and that loaded mashed potato bake. And this was delicious. That steak marinade was really good. We really enjoyed it. And we had like 3/4 of a steak left and some sauteed onions and mushrooms. And so I used the leftovers to make some like steak, egg and cheese bagel breakfast sandwiches. Oh, they were so good. The next day was Christmas. I hope everyone that celebrates it had a really wonderful Christmas. I did not film me making anything, but most everything I've shared before on my channel. Of course, the videos will be linked below. So first up, I did a ham. I just like to make a glaze with some brown sugar, Dijon mustard, a little honey, and then for the liquid part of it, sometimes I use pineapple juice, sometimes just plain water. This time I used Coca-Cola. Next up, I've never done this before, but I decided to make 2 sauces for the ham. I did a pineapple sauce and then a cherry sauce. And nobody really said anything about the cherry sauce one way or the other, but there was quite a bit of it left. And I tasted it. I didn't really love it. So I don't necessarily recommend the cherry sauce, but I really liked the pineapple sauce. You could definitely taste the cloves in that. So if you don't love cloves, maybe go back a little bit on the pineapple sauce. But I thought it was really good. And I thought it complemented the ham really well. Next, I made glazed carrots, and usually when I make these, I cook them on top of the stove. I decided to try them in the crock pot today, though, and I cooked them longer for what the recipe said. They still weren't tender, which every crock pot is different. So then I moved them to the stove and tried to cook them on top of the stove, and moving from the crock pot to the stove and then trying to cook them quickly, they just got kind of tough, but that's okay. We still had lots of other yummy sides. I made a broccoli casserole, then I made a hash brown casserole. Next, I made my granny's cornbread sage dressing. Next, I threw together a winter type salad. So I've got spinach, pomegranate seeds, glazed pecans, orange segments, feta cheese, and then I set out a balsamic vinaigrette and raspberry walnut vinaigrette to top the salad. And then I saw this next idea on Pinterest and I thought it turned out super cute. It's a snowman caprese. I just took a mozzarella ball, a fresh ball of mozzarella, cut it in half. Set it on top of each other. I used black peppercorns for the eyes and the mouth and the buttons. I cut a piece of carrot for the nose. For the scarf, I just did some fresh basil, and then around the snowman, we've got some grape tomatoes and some of the little mini mozzarella balls. And then as you can see here on the side, I've got some balsamic glaze and some roasted garlic bagel chips to go along with the caprese. And then we've got some rolls. These are just the Sister Schubert rolls I cooked according to the package instructions. For dessert, I made my Granny and my Aunt Lily's jam cake. And then I made some puppy chow. And then last but not least, I had a frozen pumpkin pie in the freezer. And I cooked it according to the package instructions. And I don't know if you can see by this or not, but it was kind of a hot mess. It wasn't that good. Here is my plate. Got a little bit of everything. This was so good. And we had such a good time with my family, eating dinner and then opening presents and watching movies, and we just had a nice time. So like I said, I hope if you celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a Merry Christmas. So with all of the Christmas festivities, the next day I was like, I am not cooking. And Pizza Hut has just really been sounding good to me, specifically their meat lovers pizza. So we ordered Pizza Hut. I went and picked it up. So we got their Supreme pizza, and I got 2 medium pizzas, by the way. We got the Supreme hand toss, and then I got the pan meat lovers, and we got some breadsticks with marinara. And this just hit the spot. Sometimes you just need a good meat lovers, yummy crust pizza. And this totally hit the spot. Back several weeks ago, Boursin cheese was on sale at Publix BOGO, so it was half price if you bought one. And Boursin can be on the little pricey side, so I try to watch the sales and pick it up when it's on sale. And I had this Boursin chicken recipe pinned I'd been wanting to try, so I decided to give it a try. Of course, the recipe will be linked down below for you. To get started in this skillet, it's on about medium-high heat. It's got some olive oil, a little pat of butter. I seasoned my chicken on both sides with some of this buttery garlic and herb Kinder seasoning. This was my first time using it. I think it was my first time using it. Maybe I used it on the asparagus the other day. I can't remember. Anyway, I seasoned both sides of the chicken, and I'm just going to cook the chicken for maybe about 4 to 5 minutes or so per side until the chicken is at least 165 degrees internal temperature. Once it's there, we're going to remove it to a plate and set that to the side. Now, if you don't have a lot of oil left in your pan, you might want to add a little drizzle. I had enough, so I'm going to add in some chopped onions, give that a stir, and I'm going to cook those for maybe 3 to 5 minutes or so until the onions get tender. Now, I went ahead and added in a splash of chicken broth. This is just chicken and it's some water and chicken bouillon, just to kind of help those onions break down and get softer faster. I've seen Rachel Ray do that so many times. She'll add like a splash of stock or water when she's cooking onions to help them, get softer or tender. So once the onions were tender, I put in the rest of the chicken broth. Now we're going to add in the Boursin cheese. This is the shallot and chive flavor, but really you could use whatever flavor you want. We are going to whisk that together and cook that for just a couple minutes until the cheese has melted. And I did turn the heat down to about medium heat at this point. We're going to cook this, like I said, just until the cheese is melted. Doesn't take very long at all. And I gave the sauce a taste. Always taste as you go. Adjust the seasonings to your taste. I didn't feel like it needed anything. So I'm going to add the chicken as well as the juices that, got on the plate from where they were setting. We're going to add that back to the skillet and then just simmer this for maybe 3 minutes or so to allow the chicken to warm back through. And then that's it. As it simmers, the sauce will get thicker. So just, simmer it until the sauce is thickened to your liking. Now for the side dish, I'm going to make some roasted Brussels sprouts. Here I have a couple slices of bacon I gave a chop. I'm going to add some halved Brussels sprouts and then some olive oil. I'm just drizzling that on top of it. Now for the seasonings, like I say with everything, use whatever seasonings you like. I wanted to keep it pretty simple, so I use this Kinder's Blend. This is basically just salt, pepper, and garlic. So it's kind of an all-purpose seasoning. That's why you see me use it a lot. Now, it's just a little more convenient than getting out your salt, pepper, and garlic, but you can do that too. So once I've got that all added, I'm going to give that a really good mix, and then I like to flip all of my Brussels sprouts over so that the cut side is face down on the cookie sheet, and I bake these at about 400 degrees for, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so, but I like my Brussels sprouts pretty dark. I like them really crispy. Cook them to your liking. Once they're done and they come out of the oven, I'm going to drizzle them with some balsamic vinegar, and then I decided tonight to also drizzle them with just a tiny little bit of maple syrup, and that was really good. So give them a toss, and then that's done. That's the Brussels sprouts. I was planning on making just regular mashed potatoes. I thought that would be really yummy to serve with the chicken and the Boursin sauce, but we had almost this entire little pan of the loaded mashed potato bake from Christmas Eve, and I just could not make mashed potatoes when I had mashed potatoes in the refrigerator. So I just covered these with foil and popped them into the oven for about 10 minutes until they were warm. And then we had some of the Sister Schubert rolls left over from Christmas dinner. I just warmed those up in the oven as well. So here are the plates. We have the leftover mashed potato bake, the rolls, the roasted Brussels sprouts, and then we've got some of the chicken with that Boursin sauce, and we really enjoyed the chicken and Boursin. We really liked that. This was just a yummy dinner. Last but not least, I tried a new recipe for beef stroganoff. Now, the recipe that I got this from says that this is Ina Garten's recipe from her Barefoot Contessa cookbook. I'm not sure about that, but I'll have the recipe I use in the description box below for you. So I have this skillet over about medium-high heat. It's got some oil in it. Once it's hot, I'm going to sear the steak. I use some sirloin steaks that I cut into thin strips. I toss them with a little bit of flour, salt, and pepper, and you want to work in batches. And the steak, one, it's sirloin and they're thinly sliced, so it's going to cook pretty fast, but you are going to cook this in the sauce later, so you don't have to worry about, cooking it all the way through. You just want to really get a good sear on it. And like I said, do this in batches if you have to. Once the meat is seared, we're going to set it to a plate and set that to the side. Now, I turned my heat down to medium. I'm going to add in a pat of butter, and then once it's melted, you're supposed to do, this is what the recipe says, but I was impatient, so my butter was a little melted. I'm going to add in some chopped onions, and we're going to cook those for about 3 to 5 minutes until the onions are tender. Once they're tender, we're going to add in our mushrooms, and these were pretty big mushrooms, so as I put them in, I just kind of broke them in half. I'm going to add in some minced garlic. You can, of course, mince your own. I'm just using the stuff from the jar. I'm going to give that a stir and then cook that for another maybe 3 minutes or so until the mushrooms are tender. Next, we're going to add in our flour, and here basically what we're going to do is just make basically like a homemade cream of mushroom soup is really what we're doing. So once I've added the flour, I'm going to give that a really good stir and cook that for a couple minutes to get that flour taste out. Once that's there, we're going to add in our beef broth, or in my case, I'm using water and some beef bouillon. I'm making sure to give that a really good stir and scraping up the bits from the bottom. Next, we're going to add in some Dijon mustard, which I've made several different recipes for beef stroganoff, and I've never added Dijon to it that I'm aware of anyway. So that was a nice little twist for this recipe. After the mustard, we're going to add in the Worcestershire sauce, followed by dried thyme. And then I'm going to stir that in, and you just want to simmer this until it is thickened. Now, I did give it a taste. Again, always taste as you go, adjust the seasonings. I didn't feel like it needed any salt or anything. But once it is thickened and seasoned to your liking, it is time to add that steak as well as the juices back in. We're going to give that a toss, and then you just want to simmer this for, again, maybe 3 minutes or so. You're basically just warming up the steak. So after we've added the steak, I'm going to turn the heat off, and we're going to add in the sour cream, give that a stir, and then I would give this one last taste, after you've added the sour cream. So I just allowed that to sit for a couple minutes to allow the sour cream to kind of warm up, and that was it. This is what it looked like when it was done. For the side dish, I'm just going to do some simple green beans. I've got some trimmed green beans. I like to place them in a bowl and then just kind of pick through them because sometimes, they have the strings on, or there's a, weird green bean or something. So after I've kind of went through them a little bit, I'm going to drizzle them with olive oil. For the seasonings, again, I know you've heard me say it 50 times, use whatever seasonings you like. I'm going to do this buttery garlic and herb seasoning. And then we're going to add some grated Parmesan cheese. I'm just using the stuff from the can. I'm going to give that a good toss. You can roast these in the oven. That's what I normally do, but tonight I didn't have the oven on and I didn't want to turn it on just for the green beans. So I decided to cook them in the air fryer, popped them in the air fryer basket, and I cooked these at like 370 degrees for maybe like 8 minutes. I shook the basket halfway through, just cook them until they're tender. Now, you can't have beef stroganoff without noodles or mashed potatoes, some kind of carb, right? So I just cooked up some egg noodles according to package instructions, placed them back in the pot, and added just a tiny little pat of butter. Here are the plates. So we've got some of the egg noodles, the beef stroganoff. I added a little bit of chopped parsley on top as a garnish, and the green beans, and we really liked this recipe. I will say, though, that when I went to make this recipe, I realized I had a brain fart, and instead of getting the 1.5 pounds of steak that the recipe called for, I had just over 3/4 of a pound. And I felt like using the 3/4 of a pound, it was the right amount of like sauce for 3/4 of a pound of meat. In my personal opinion, I feel like if you would use the whole 1.5 pounds, you wouldn't have nearly enough like sauce to go over noodles or mashed potatoes, if that makes sense. And that may just be a personal preference, but if you're going to use a whole 1.5 pounds of meat, I would suggest doubling, all of the other ingredients. But again, that could just be a personal preference. But all of the recipes from today's videos and anything that I've made before, shared before on my channel, all of that will be linked down in the description box below for you. I hope that you liked this video. I know it was a little different than usual, a little longer than usual, but nonetheless, I hope you got some dinner ideas. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and Happy New Year. Today, when this video goes up, it is New Year's Eve, so I hope you all have a safe and a happy New Year.